Sacred Souls. It's Susanna from Alamanic Shaman. What I have here for us tonight is more emotional wound healing that comes from trauma, that comes from having been a victim of war and similar horrors and human rights violations and things like that, but not limited to that. So, for example, if your ancestors lived through a war, that trauma also got passed down from generation to generation. Well, usually that's the case unless someone really goes through the whole healing process and heals from it. And in that case, it stops, right? Which is what most of us are doing. But I was going to do a fire ceremony tonight, and I actually brought this leftover wax from yesterday's ceremony with me, so that's why the bottom is already broken. But the important piece I wanted to show you is still intact, because I received some guidance that we needed to do more wound healing for this, and I'll explain all of that in a second. But let's start with this, because this morning when that had stopped burning, or more like early afternoon, I was fascinated by the fact that this is like an empty vessel, and it really, it's like the exterior skull, or like seemingly the head is still intact, but it's completely empty and burnt out on the inside, which I think is very symbolic and telling. And it has a complete crack on the side here, see? And that's what I feel like. It's like the war between good and evil, where they already know, like the dark, they already know that they lost, but they're fighting until the bitter end, right? So, like, most of it is already gone, but there's still more healing that needs to be done, and that is connected to the wound healing, which, like, I did a ceremony on this maybe 2 weeks ago. I don't remember exactly when, but you'll see those images. So basically, this is a magnification. Hold on, let me zoom in here. So this magnified view of a healing skin wound shows red blood cells becoming trapped in a mesh of protein fiber to form a clot that helps prevent blood loss. So that's what this looks like under the microscope, right? Or like a microscopic view. It's actually interesting. So they must take the picture through the microscope, I guess. Anyway, sorry, that just crossed my mind. So these are red blood cells that are bleeding, like they're causing the bleeding, or they're just bleeding out, and then this mesh gets formed to stop them and bind them together, right? And to close the wound, which I had replicated here, improvised, because I thought I had cheesecloth, but I didn't, so I used a scarf of mine. And these lentils, was it lentils or split peas? No, they're red lentils, which I put some in a jar here. But I used the red lentils to replicate the red blood cells, even though they look more orange, but it was the closest that I had. And what came to me, or what was a download, however wording you use, usually I just say it came to me, but it's like basically like in a claircognizant kind of way, right? Was that to fully banish that dark, toxic stuff within us caused by trauma, and this could be trauma that we experienced directly ourselves, or that was passed down by someone who lived through a war and war times, and they passed it down to us through abuse, like maybe not knowingly or willingly, but simply being triggered themselves as parents, they weren't able to, give us the unconditional love that they never received, right? So for that, I just put it in this glass jar to make it easier. So I'm going to pour the red lentils. I don't want to take this apart, so I have some more red lentils representing the red blood cells that cause... yes, sorry, that wasn't clear yet. So basically what came to me is that any unhealed emotional wounds cause bleeding, like energetic bleeding within us, right? So unless all that trauma gets healed, we bleed out energetically, basically, especially when we get triggered. And that's why I wanted to put the red blood cells in here. See, I'm actually going to pour them right in here. Yeah, some are falling out, but most of them are staying. I figured that would hold. That's actually kind of neat how that actually stays in there. So our emotional wounds shall also be healed through the banishing of all that darkness and evil that caused all of these horrors, and that was then, creating a lot more trauma and darkness in everyone in our lineage from the beginning of that trauma. All right, so sorry, I had like 2-3 thoughts at the same time, and it's like if I don't get the words out right away, then sometimes I forget part of it. But oh yes, so there were actually, like, in the last 2 years, there were 2 people that massively robbed me of my right to, like, in one case to speak for myself, and in the other case to make a decision for myself. And in both cases, I was massively energetically drained, invaded. I had a lot of dark interference happening. And basically, like, in the first case, that was before I had learned enough of the shamanic skills. So my world pretty much came crashing down on me. And it took me about a year to dig myself out of that. But everything was just falling apart and going wrong in my life. And the second time was much more recently, but in this case, I saw the signs very quickly and nipped it in the bud by breaking contact with that person and any possible interactions, and disconnecting from it, because in that sense they no longer have access. Because a lot of times that whenever people do those kind of things, that's because of their own trauma. And when we have trauma, we have shadows, like darkness within us. And that's how dark entities can attach. And it's a lot of times those dark entities that kind of worsen our behavior and what we do, right? I don't know. I hope that's clear to you, but I don't know how to explain it better, because I have more of a sense, a feeling of how it is, but sometimes it's hard to fully put that in words. But yeah, so it's when someone takes your personal power away, basically. And that could be through being silenced, right? And which is why I have this one here again. Or by being robbed of your right to make your own decision. But we can also give our power away by, for example, being indecisive and, asking other people for their advice and then basically doing what they said. So that means we gave our power away to that person, right? So taking our power back means that we make our own decisions and we speak for ourselves in all situations. which is very difficult, and it's a longer process usually for most of us. Like, we can do it in many situations and then more and more and more, but then there might be some situations where we can't, right? So it's a learning process. Anyhow, so yeah, being silenced, right? And what I wanted to quickly mention is that for most people from all around the world, some ancestors went and lived through a war, right? So whenever there's a war, there's trauma as well, right? I mean, most people cannot live through a war without being traumatized in one form or another. And like in my case, my grandparents lived through both World War One and World War Two in Germany. And my dad was a little kid during World War Two, and my mom was born right at the end of World War Two. So, like, the family was still enough affected by what was happening. And I mean, during, and see, there goes my voice. Exactly. It's like that being silenced. And that's exactly during World War Two. And, you know, considering that there was a dictator, there was no freedom of speech, for example. So people were silenced, right? There was a censorship and people couldn't say certain things. And I know, like, most of us awakened ones nowadays can relate to that as well. Again, I'm not going to say any more, but once you're awakened to, like, what's really going on beyond the visible 3D and mainstream, it's amazing how many parallels you can discover. Let's put it that way. And I mean amazing, not in a good way in this case. It's mind-boggling. That's probably the better word. Anyway, without getting carried away here, let's do more of the emotional healing for the trauma for any victims of war, tyrannies, in those kind of scenarios, right, where human rights violations happened and so on, genocides and all that kind of stuff. Okay, and what I want to add into, because yesterday I focused much more only on the victims, but the perpetrators' souls also carry a heavy burden, because the guilt that someone takes on a soul level when committing horrors, for example, following orders or something. Luckily, as far as I know, no one in my family did, but it still happened in the culture, and we also carry a cultural burden, right? So, like, for all people affected in any and all ways, like, by trauma, shall, and how should I put this? Having abuse passed down to them because of all of that. We shall all heal from that in tonight's session. Sorry, that was a long-winded thing. It's been a long day again, so thank you for bearing with me. All right, so let's smudge and get to it. Oh, and I can actually remove this glass so you can see this a little better. I just wanted to actually show you the empty vessel here first. Okay, so let's get started. Oh, I'm actually going to move this over here. That's perfect. Okay, a little bit more. I like to have a bunch of smoke. Oh, maybe not tonight. We'll see. I think that's enough, probably. Maybe a bit more. Whoops, don't want to burn my fingers. Okay, that's good enough. Please cleanse and renew all of our energies and take away anything dark, evil, and low vibrational, and flood us with massive amounts of healing light, unconditional love, blessings, and protections from the divine. And so it is. Thank you. Dankeschön, all my relations. All right, everyone. Let's get started. Dear Creator, higher power, source, and soul energy, our higher selves, our higher spirit guides of the light, dear Mother Earth, our ancestors that are in the light, Great Spirit of the fire, as well as the other three elements, air, earth, and water. Please join the ceremony and assist the healings and prayers with all of your powers. Thank you. Please close the circle of protection around us. Thank you. And here goes the voice again. Oh yeah, there's definitely a lot that needs to be healed when it comes to speaking our truth freely and uninhibitedly and taking our power back by being able to fully express ourselves. Okay. We ask for all your divine healing, for all your divine help in receiving a massive healing on all levels, to help us heal from any and all wounding that either happened in our generation or in previous ones, in our lineages, in our bloodlines, in our culture, in our country. If, let's say, we don't live in the same country as our culture, as our cultural background, all of that is now a part of us. And we shall fully and completely heal from this. Please continue the healing for many weeks and even years if necessary, just being started from this ceremony. Let the healings continue for as long as it takes so that we can all fully and completely heal from this, that we can fully and completely let go of all the anger, hate, resentment, blame, guilt, fear, and from that indirectly also resulting jealousy, envy, and those kind of emotions that stem from fear, that originate from these horrors, these human rights violations that were inflicted upon either us or our ancestors. Let all that darkness be taken away. Oh, I feel compelled to cover this in a garbage bag. I use these compostable garbage bags now for my garbage, so that's what this is. So we're going to cover this. This shall no longer be a part of our lives. Any and all trauma and any emotional wounds, any energetic wounds, any wounds on all levels, physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, energetically, and karmically, shall be cleansed, cleared, and healed from us, our whole system, throughout all of time and space, throughout all lifetimes, timelines, parallel and alternate realms, realities, multi and universes, and any and all other aspects that affect us in this lifetime and moving forward. And that shall be applied to our whole lineages, going back to our most distant ancestor and moving forward to our most distant descendant, everyone in our lineages shall now be healed, or shall receive the healing for all these wounds caused by trauma that originated from those horrors inflicted by these evil ones. And that shall be horrors of war, genocide, human rights violations of any and all kind, in any connection to abuse of power and authority, or of one group taking power and control, such as the guerrilla, for example. We shall all fully and completely heal from this. And so it is. Thank you. Dankeschön, all my relations. And Spirit, Great Spirit of the Eagle. Sorry I didn't specifically invite you, but I know you're part of my spirit guides anyhow. And I think many of the viewers also work with the Spirit of the Eagle, so please brush away anything remaining that is dark in our energy fields, in our body, mind, spirit, soul, and energy field, in our whole chakra system, and in any and all aspects that are a part of who we are in this lifetime. And so it is. Thank you. Dankeschön. All my relations. And any of the stress that is associated with the trauma that usually was a part of the being in fight or flight mode is now leaving our body, our nervous system, and our minds. The memories are fading and we're letting it float away. And we get to a place of detachment. We're no longer attached to it. These experiences helped us grow, and they happened for our soul's growth. We understand the purpose, and we're no longer looking at it from a small 3D view, but we're looking at it from a 5D perspective. And we're letting it float away. We bless it with love, release it from our lives now and forever, freeing all of us for all eternity. And so it is. Thank you. Dankeschön, all my relations. Let us be massively filled and surrounded by inner peace, love, harmony, and a strong feeling of safety and security We're so massively divinely loved and protected. We can relax. The divine has got us. All right. If you'd like to stay in this energy a bit longer, then please pause the video. For the rest of us, let the ceremony now be finished and accept our love, thanks, gratitude, and blessings. We thank all our spirit guides, our ancestors, the divine, all the higher light beings that we called in earlier. We are so infinitely thankful. Thank you, Dankeschön, all my relations. Let the ceremony now be finished and open the circle of protection around us. Thank you, Dankeschön, all my relations. All our relations. Okay, everyone, thank you so much for watching and for being a part of this ceremony and for working on your own healing and your ascension journey. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, share, and subscribe. And I'm also sending you tons of love and light, many blessings and protections, and be well until next time. Bye.